afternoon, good evening to our viewers. My name is Dr. Chitrani Majumdar, and on behalf of Remote Sensing and GIS at AIT, I welcome you all to the 5th session of ArcGIS webinar series. This is an academic event that we started to share knowledge of our experts in AIT. In this webinar, we have a technical session followed by an interaction session where we will address some issues and questions raised during our technical session. You can also be part of this interaction session by commenting in our Facebook Live comment box or chat box in our Zoom if you have joined in our Zoom. And I will convey the questions to our experts. Today is very special to me as I'm privileged to moderate the session of my mentor and PhD supervisor, Professor Nitin Kumar Tripathi. He is a professor at ArcGIS AIT with 32 years of experience in teaching, research, and projects. He is also currently the director of special degree programs at AIT. His research focuses in the application of geoinformatics in environment, marine, health, and agriculture fields. He also worked on development of wireless GIS using concept of internet GIS and wireless devices, such as wireless LAN, personal digital assistant with mobile phones. In the field of health GIS, he has proven excellence and is one of the pioneers in the region. And today, he has brought a very interesting topic, machine learning for early warning of malaria incidences using climatic data. Welcome, sir, to the ArcGIS webinar series. But before I invite Professor Nitin for the technical session, let me also introduce Ms. Pallavi Mahapatra, who is a PhD scholar at ArcGIS AIT and an expert in this topic to interact and share her experience with us. Thank you so much, Ms. Pallavi, for joining us today. And before we head on to technical session, may I invite you to talk a little about you and like your experience at AIT. Ms. Pallavi.
Good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Dr. Chitrani, for inviting me for this session. And also I'd like to thank Dr. Nitin for inviting me to this session. A little background about me. I am an electronics telecommunication engineer initial, and then I joined AIT for my master's in information communication technology. And I have been working in many software industries before. And before coming to AIT, I was working in Thycoms in satellite, and then I joined AIT. And after I joined AIT and I was working, I'm currently working in AIT, and also I'm doing my PhD with Dr. Nitin. My research areas include the machine learning and going more into this machine learning and the depth of how this can be used for our any kind of predictions or any kind of like day-to-day use where we can use machine learning to predict the certain incidents and all. So my current research area is more on machine learning now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pallavi, and very interesting background actually. Like you have quite diverse experience, I must say. And we will interact with you more after the technical session. And now may I invite Professor Nitin to enlighten us with this very interesting topic of today. Okay. And then we'll continue discussing later on.
Thank you, Dr. Chitrani, for arranging this RSGIS seminar, which is very useful for students. I hope more students will join after some time. And I'm very happy that Pallavi is here. She has done the work, and it is a very pioneer work for our field, that using machine learning for health. And I'm very happy. And her thesis is already cleared by external. We are just waiting for some other requirement, and then she may graduate. And very soon she will be like Dr. Pallavi Mahapatra. So I wish her all the best. I'm very happy that both of us are here together with our alumni and students. And we will talk about her research. This is a very good practice that has been started by Dr. Saraut, our coordinator. And I'm the last one, I think, in the series of faculty who are giving the lecture. But it will continue, I think, more lectures will be there. So, so I will share my screen and then I will go. And I'm very happy to tell that Dr. Hauran Jang, one of my one of the alumni of AIT and my student, is also here. And maybe Dr. Jang, you can start a video so everybody can say hello to you. I think his video is off. He may join.
Yeah, I will contact him, and then maybe
Yeah.
during the interaction session we can talk to him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So I'm going to talk about machine learning for early warning of malaria incidents using climatic factor parameters. And the work is done by Miss Pallavi Mahapatra under my supervision. And is a very good work. I think more people will use machine learning and AI for different kind of health issues and other environmental issues in the future. So as Pallavi was telling that one of my passion of research is health GIS. And in AIT also now many people have realized that human health is supreme, not only in AIT, in the world now. All of us are fighting with COVID-19 for the last more than 1 year. And it has ruined the economies and all the daily life of the people. So human health is, I think, top most important. And we all have to take care of our health. Then only we can perform. So everybody, whether it is young child or senior people, everybody has to take care of the health. And we know that health of human belongs to several factors like climatic factors, temperature, rainfall, humidity, wind, everything. Another is environment, in what environment we are, like water quality, air quality, and whether we are in a crowded place or in a hygienic place or something like that. So environment is playing a great role for our human health. Third thing is socioeconomic. If people are relatively richer, their economic standards are high, they can afford good hygiene, good medicine, and regular health care. But those who are not, they may not be able to take care of themselves that nicely. Even their food is not nutritious. So they will have a very uh, fragile body which can fall sick very soon. And once this will happen, their performance will go down and they cannot achieve the success the way other people get who are little bit economically sound status. Also the social conditions. There are many societies in which their living style, etc., also affect our health. Health and well-being usually begins when the child is born, right from his hospital, a small bed, crèche, where he is born, and then everybody starts his parameters like what is heartbeat, what is temperature, weight, height, everything. They measure it, and his health care and well-being starts right there, and it goes on till his life. Now, how GIS is coming into this picture? Health, I understand, you understand, doctor understand, nurses understand health, but is, is GIS important for that? As I told in the very first slide, that climate, environment, society, economic condition, everything matters for health. Now, when I come talk about GIS, it is coming because it can take all these factors into account, from our neighborhood, from our district, our provinces, our country, all this data is linked to human health, like air quality, soil, what kind of soil we are using, what kind of materials are there. Like, is soil having arsenic? And if it is having arsenic, then it can go into the plants and we will eat it, or it can leach into the water and then we will drink that water. So, soil is important. Food, what kind of food we are eating, water quality, nature, in what kind of, like, forest environment, or near the water bodies, or near the clong or canal we are living, or near the desert we are living. That is also important. Culture, animals, like, bird flu, you know like rodents, they carry bacteria, means this kind of bacteria or vectors, and then they transmit the disease. Even the bat, this corona, people told that it came from the bat. So these are important. Then distances, buildings, in what kind of buildings we are living, habitat we are living, accidents, accident itself is causing a hazard to our health. That is one thing. So if we are living in an accident prone area, our health will be affected. Chemicals, are we living into some zones where chemicals are being manufactured, gases are being emitted? Yeah, it will affect us. Then healthcare facilities, demographics, all these things are going to affect us. And GIS creates the map of all these factors, and then we can associate it with the number of cases of disease and find out which factor is having more influence than other, and then try to control those factors, and then we can try to ensure better health to the people. It is a very complex relationship, and that is why very complicated mathematical models are required to take care of all these variables and give result, how many incidents of disease are occurring and which variable is more important than other. This is just an example. Like, you can see the dwelling, and this gentleman is taking with GPS coordinate, and also taking the water quality, what the people are drinking, and then this water is going into their body, and then he will test the water quality, find out whether it is worth drinking or not, or if somebody drinks, what kind of problem they will have. So this is the way we take the sample from place to place and find out in this neighborhood what kind of problems may occur. Like, this water may have too much fluoride, and then their bones will become fragile, their teeth will become red, and after some time they will become aged. Even in the age of 40, they will look like 70. You can see nowadays modern housing. Inside these buildings, on the left side that you can see, inside the flat will be all right. People can go and sleep, but there is no place. It is looking very crowded. So many people are living in one place. There are no parks, no open spaces. And this kind of dwellings are not very good for human health. So this is the example of qualities, means communities in which we are living, urban communities and village communities. There are problems in different places, different problems are there. Now I come to the topic of malaria. Malaria is one of the oldest disease that all of us know, and it is coming to us due to the mosquito bite. So if you go in the areas where a lot of mosquitoes are there, and it may it comes by Aedes anopheles, and then these are the region in which malaria is quite predominant. This is a 2015 map from World Bank, and then we can see in Africa, number of places are very much affected. In Southeast Asia, South Asia, we are also affected, but not so means alarming. But yeah, we are affected right from Iran, India, Myanmar, and every Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and East Timor. You can see a lot of, not Timor, Papua New Guinea, etc. And then you can see South America. And so this is the cases in 2015. It means malaria is still there in a big part of the world. These are the graphs which are showing, like this red graph is about Africa region. Sorry, 1 second, I will. Yeah, this red graph is of Africa region. Though malaria cases are coming down from 2010, but still it is quite high than the world average. This is the world average. So Africa region is much beyond the world average. So I think there is a need to take care. Then red color, you will be surprised. This is from Eastern Mediterranean region. They are also doing very badly as far as malaria incidence is concerned. Then green color is Southeast Asia region, our region in which we are living. So after East Mediterranean, Africa, we are the third one to do. And then one thing where it is rising, it is Americana, like South America. Now malaria is rising over there. Southeast Asia, it is coming down, but in Americana region, South America, it is rising. So this is the World Health Organization data, and they say that malaria continues to the humans as a threat for their health. Now, one of the case study done by one of my student long back about Kanchanaburi, where malaria is predominant. So he also did using climatic factors, and he did his thesis. And this is the Kanchanaburi. Plus black color is a provincial hospital, and dots are district hospital. So you can see so many hospitals are there in that region, and blue color is the water bodies, and river is shown. So in this area we have done the work in Kanchanaburi to find out where exactly malaria is existing in this area. So we can think about it, like what kind of data to take and find out how to map malaria in this area. So he was one of the first student who did that. And first we have to find out relationship of malaria with like climatic factors. So here we are taking malaria cases, and in different years, different months. So you can see the green color is 1999. Malaria cases are so high. But after 1999, cases are going down. Next in 2000, it is quite less. Then yellow color 2001. So Thailand is doing very well to control malaria. Cases are going down. But apart from that, what other interesting information is coming is that there is a trend. Like cases are rising in the month of, from the month of April. April it is very much less because it is a hot month, mosquitoes are not there. And then suddenly when first rain comes, in the May, we can see rise in the mosquito population. June, too many mosquitoes. And after that, it is going down. It means there is a peak in all the curves. In 2000, peak is little bit early. And in 2001, peak is 2000, means May and June, it is the same level. But we can see that June is the month where a lot of malaria cases come. It means the rain which has occurred in the May, it is causing mosquitoes to increase their population and then bite the humans. So this is the thing. Very interesting information is coming from this, that malaria depends on season. Like just after rainfall starts, malaria cases go up. As the rainfall is down in October, malaria cases are almost nil. And then it will continue to be there, like maybe around 600 cases, but it will be very less compared to say 2,500 cases in the month of June. Now, what happens due to the climate? Climate, it is the season we can see. Now climate, like rainfall, January very little rainfall is there. This is the average rainfall. February rainfall is little bit high, average rainfall. March it is going high. April, last week, lot of rainfall occurs. So this is the thing. And May, you can see here, very high rainfall. Then June, July, August, September, it goes down. After September, it goes down. 127, 24, 4.4. So rainfall also is following a trend where the cases are, like you can see here, rainfall is very high in July, but it is rising from May, 134. So rainfall is increasing, malaria cases are increasing. Temperature is decreasing, malaria cases are increasing. Humidity is increasing, malaria cases are increasing. So, and the bottom is the malaria cases. You can compare, and then you can see that in June, very high malaria cases. And what is the parameter of rainfall, temperature, humidity? Maybe rainfall little bit before, because then only the plants will have leaf and little bit flowering will be there, and mosquitoes will get some food to survive, and then they will attack humans also. Now, apart from the climatic factor, he has also seen elevation and land use. So he found that rainfall, when it is 400 to 900, then very high cases of malaria. Then from 900 to 1500, also high cases. Then 1500 to 2000, moderate cases. Less than 400, there is no, very low or no cases are there. So if the means rainfall is increasing, malaria cases are becoming high, but after 1500 millimeter annual rainfall, it will go down. It means when too much of rainfall is there, malaria mosquito cannot survive. Same thing is in elevation. In the lower elevation, 100 to 300 meters, lot of malaria cases are there. 300 to 500 meters, moderate. If the elevation is rising, 500 to 700, low cases. 700 to 900 meter, low cases. 900 to 1100, low cases. So only in the very low elevation, lot of malaria cases, and after that it becomes moderate or very low. So this is another relationship is emerging based on elevation. Land use, like high cases will be near agriculture area, forest area, and people have to live, so built up area around there. Then miscellaneous, wetland, waste, bare land, etc. Water body, river and reservoir. Now, after combining all this, using some kind of, say, information value and AHP, he has combined all these parameters and we got the malaria risk zone. So today I'm not explaining about that work because it is just an example. In that we have taken some other technique and we have created this map. Now this is one-time information. Now we know that dark places are high malaria incidence. Moderate places are gray color and white colors are very low cases in that area. So this is a map which is very useful, but this is one-time map. Now question comes, can we give some kind of warning to the people that when the malaria will start or how many cases will be there? Nowadays, we have so many satellites in the orbit. Recently, one of the private company is SpaceX. They have launched 3-4 days back one rocket and almost 240 satellites from that. A private company is SpaceX by Elon Musk. So you can see so many satellites are in the orbit, hundreds and hundreds from NASA, from China, from India, Japan, Thailand. So we have so many satellite data is being they are providing. So we have a lot of data about Earth's surface. Another thing is the UAV. UAV is a very powerful equipment that we have got now. So we can fly our camera, our sensors, and we can cover our region of interest and analyze the data. So we can take the data in high spatial resolution, moderate resolution, or low resolution, and then spectral resolution, like we can get the data by hyperspectral camera, almost 250 bands. So human beings just have access to 3 bands separately. Now they want, we can take more bands into account and get more details about the data. Not only human health, we can also monitor plant health using satellite data. or UAV to detect plant disease. And when we fly here in our agriculture area, we can make the maps, like which area there are a lot of disease and plants are drying up. It means we need to take some kind of a remedial measures or do some kind of spray to remove the this disease or say insects or something, and then save our plants. Otherwise, it will totally destroy the crop and farmers will be in trouble. Okay, so now we know that there is a lot of scope about using remote sensing and GIS for health issues. There are many techniques, a lot of work has been done, and there are at least 10 to 15 very good journals which are publishing papers about health and ICT and GIS. So this is one of the areas where there is a lot of scope. Now machine learning. Why the question of machine learning is coming? Because we need some kind of a technique to convert the data into information. Like we have statistical techniques, regression modeling, we have analytical hierarchy process model. I think some of you might have heard and learned about it. And information value approach. Then there are many other techniques, genetic algorithm, neural network, and other things. Now the trend is that huge amount of data is coming from various sources. Lot of variables are coming. So what we do, we use deep learning. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. So we put all the data in time series and the cases like malaria cases or any disease cases, and it will make some kind of a combination by multi-layered neural network, and then it will give us some kind of a subset which can be fed into the machine learning. So it will segment the complete information of all the variables separately, and then we can put it into the machine learning. There are algorithms to relate it, all the variables with the independent variable. So all the dependent variable uh, that we want of our interest, we can relate it to number of independent variables. And then after deep learning, we can use the algorithm in machine learning to come out with the information or knowledge. And then we can give it to the artificial intelligence, which can take this machine learning knowledge and then can sense, reason, act, and adapt based on its intelligence, which has been developed by machine learning. So machine learning is a technique which is like human behavior, you can say, nature. Like we also get a lot of data over the years, but slowly when we become very senior, then we have the better capability of decision making because we have seen all the experience came to us, and then our mind is ready to respond in the situation, new situations based on our past experience. Same thing is artificial intelligence. So it will take the deep learning huge data, then means a constraint into some information by machine learning, and then from those information we can take the decision, we can do the reasoning, we can act, we can take some action, and also adapt to the situation. So machine learning nowadays is very popular, and I think in remote sensing now many people are using machine learning for classification and like random forest, etc. So a lot of tools are emerging now. Now malaria in the case of context of India, so what are the first 5 provinces which are very important for malaria study? You can see the blue color, the tower. It is from Orissa. Orissa is having the high number of cases, though the cases were rising from 2014 to 16, but now it is going down. And then Chhattisgarh, it is constant on the same level. Maharashtra, it is going down, and Tripura down, but Orissa is still very significantly high. So in this study, we have chosen Orissa, and there was also a region that Pallavi is from Orissa. So we have she has taken this study area because data is very important, and she could manage the data from Orissa because she knows the people, and then she could arrange the data. Background: studies using machine learning and AI techniques to predict different disease incidence or epidemic. So studies, there are a lot of studies using machine learning and AI for many things. And in this study, we are focusing on disease incidence and epidemic. The machine learning, there are encouraging results to predict the future incidence. Use of climate data for better predictability of malaria. So climate data is very much related to malaria, and so we are using that one for better predictability of malaria. Temperature, humidity, rainfall are being considered to have a strong influence on malaria incidence and spreading. Objectives: to compare a comparative analysis of different machine learning algorithms to establish a relation between the localized climatic condition to malaria incidence is being done here. So we will take different machine learning and AI techniques and then compare the results from them using the climatic condition and malaria incidence. Enhance the communication of malaria risk in the study area. Uh, though establishment of a malaria early warning system. So through malaria early warning system, we will try to communicate malaria risk to the people so that they can be aware of the latest situation and they can take care of themselves from malaria. Now this is the Orissa province, pink color in India on the eastern border of India. And then in this province, there is a Sundargarh district. And then you can see red color is elevation in meters. So it means there is a mountain here and here and here. And then other parts are based on that. So elevation map is being shown here. Now current study data. This study is for analyzing the influence of the weather on malaria incidence at block level for Sundargarh district. Rainfall, temperature, humidity, etc. were taken. They are the independent variable and disease is the dependent variable. So we are taking rainfall, temperature, humidity as independent variable, disease as the dependent variable. Block level monthly disease data was collected from the Directorate of Public Health, State Government of Orissa. So block level of data was available, but monthly, not weekly. I would have loved to have weekly data, then can get more details. Block-wise rainfall data from the Special Relief Commissioner web portal. So rainfall data we could get block-wise detailed data from the Relief Commissioner web portal. Temperature, humidity are collected from the gridded reanalysis due to unavailability of sufficient data at block level. So temperature, humidity were collected from the global data ECMW. ECMWF is the European Center for Medium Range weather forecast. So we have taken that so that we can offer some good results. The reanalysis data is globally used as a standard to replace the actual observations. So after the analysis, when we are doing reanalysis, so that is data is also used to means replace the actual data. Now the data, malaria incidence, we got it from Directorate for Public Health for 15 years. And then rainfall data, Special Relief Commissioner, India, Meteorological Department, we can get it. Temperature data by ECMWF and humidity data, ECMWF. Now this is the predictive modeling of malaria incidence. Now you can see here climatic factor like rainfall, temperature, humidity are going into the database, and then malaria incidence. Data range were first classified and then conversion to nominal Y category. And then we have used two techniques. One is the J48 decision tree modeler Another is ANN, multi-layer perceptron model, neural network. And then we have got the validated the results by J48 model and validation of MLP model. Identify model with higher accuracy and use that model for the future of malaria incidence. Now steps are, these are the steps. So first step was to process all data to be monthly of the disease cases as monthly data was available. Data is processed, data is pre-processed for spreading analysis. So there are two type of analysis done. One is the spread analysis to estimate the lower quantiles to higher quantiles. Quantile means suppose P25, it means 25% of the data were taken for observation variable, and other data was these percentile of observation variable can be defined as the value that cuts off the first n% of values of the data when the data has been sorted out in ascending order. So for spread analysis, we can say 25 percentile, 50 percentile, 75 percentile, or 95 percentile of data, and then we test it on other. Data range is computed for all blocks for both dependent and independent variables. So block-wise analysis was done. From the numeric range, corresponding nominal range is estimated for the variable. So in this technique, one thing is there. Numeric data ranges are converted into like qualitative data, like nominal range, and then we can use them directly as a variable. So this is the range of calculation in 6 blocks. Now you can say here, these are the block name, these are the numbers, IDs. And now here you can see malaria incident, malaria rainfall data, T2. T2 is the maximum temperature average for 10 days of maximum temperature. So 10 days average of maximum temperature data is taken, rainfall is taken, relative humidity is taken as the independent variable, and then malaria cases are dependent variable. So now you can see the ranges for 25 percentile. This is the range for different parameters of like say rainfall, T2, and humidity and number of cases. P50, this is the range, like 23 rainfall, malaria is 30.33, humidity for malaria is 82.5, total malaria cases are 78 in this. But as soon as you go P75, it is almost 100 plus 173 cases of malaria incidence. If you go further, like 95 percentile data, then 460 cases of malaria are there. So what is the optimum we can decide? Like in this slide, we are going to change the numeric range to the corresponding nominal range. And so RF is 25, T2 is 24.76, RH is 82.62, number of cases are 11. So according to this, RF is low, T2 is low, RH is low, and disease cases are also low. Now you can see here 2002 month 8, then RF relativity is 308. It is called high. T2 is 28.86. It is low because it is higher temperature, and then it is low. And then RH is very high here. Okay, so this is the nominal data we convert. I hope you understood. And then this is the table which was converted. Low means 0 to 23 rainfall. Medium is 23.1 to 178. High means 178.1 to 445. Very high is greater than 445. And then malaria for T2, that is the 10 days average maximum temperature, 28.3 to 30.3 is the low. 30.4 to 33.6 is medium. 33.7 to 38.3 is high. So great, and for very high it is 38.3 and higher for temperature. So similarly for humidity, So you can see here, as the rainfall is between low, medium, high, number of cases are also increasing accordingly. And when rainfall is highest, then it is also very high. But it is almost like high to very high borderline, you can say here. And then for all the blocks, it has been calculated. Then we have used for machine learning Weka machine learning algorithm. It is a software developed, I think, in New Zealand, a collection of machine learning algorithm for data mining. It contains tool for data preparation, classification, regression, clustering, association rules, mining, and visualization. So all tools of machine learning are there, right from data preparation. The pre-process panels have facilities for importing data from a database, which are like CSV format, and use some kind of a filtering algorithm for pre-processing. These filters can be used to transform the data, turning numeric attribute to the discrete one, and make it possible to delete instances and attributes according to the specific criteria. The classify panel enables applying classification and regression algorithm indiscriminately called classifiers in Weka to the resulting database to estimate the accuracy of the resulting predictive model and to visualize erroneous prediction. Then another technique we have used is the multi-layer perceptron, MLP. It is a class of feed-forward artificial network, and it utilizes a supervised learning called backpropagation network for neural network for training. Its multiple layers and non-linear activation distinguishes MLP from a linear perceptron. So, as we know, uh, neural network is not the linear or thing technique. It can take the non-linear thing also and use some kind of a function, and we can do the misclassification or identification of the features of our choice. So that is called multi-layer perceptron, and it can distinguish data that is not linearly separable. A classifier that uses backpropagation to learn a multi-layer perceptron to classify instances. The network parameters can also be monitored and modified during the training time. So backpropagation is useful. It can learn a multi-layer perceptron to classify instances. Network parameters can also be monitored and modified during the training time. So we can always give more data for training and desired output, and we try to interact with the system, and we can monitor and modify. J48 decision tree model was used in the Weka, and this is a model in which a dependent attribute variable given the values of independent attribute variables. So since it is very useful technique, it depends on the decision tree, and what it does, J48 in Weka is the implementation of algorithm C4.5, which is used to generate a decision tree for a set of training data. So whatever training data is developed, and it will give decision based on that one for the other data. At each node of the tree, it chooses the attribute of the data that most effectively splits its set of samples into subset enriched in one class or the other. So now it will make the decision tree, and based on the attribute, it will, when it is going to decide, so it will see the cluster and then split it into two parts, and then based on the samples into the subset. And so it is easy to develop the decision tree into this one. See, this J48 C4.5 is used from the J48. It is an algorithm used to generate a decision tree. C4.5 is an extension earlier on ID3 algorithm. The decision tree generated by C4.5 can be used for classification, and for this region, C4.5 is often referred to as statistical classifier. So this is the one thing where some part of thing is like statistics. So some people call it, but it is a very good decision tree based algorithm. Steps are nominal data is then used as an input for the J48 and MLP. So we cannot take the input as the numerical data that we were taking earlier. It has to be like a nominal data created just now in J48 and MLP technique. Model is computed with 4 types of data input. So there are different type of data input like cross validation, two types of split, and then we use it for test set and then training, like decision making. Model performance is evaluated through assessing indicators such as root mean square error, kappa coefficient, and relative operating characteristics ROC for 3 nominal variance categories: high, medium, and low. So resultant algorithm is used for the prediction of the future incidents based on the weather forecast. So this is the thing that we have done here, and the algorithm that is developed, it can use for prediction. Now, for that factors, we have used ECMWF for 10 days forecast is used. So we can use this data together with incidence data, and then we come out with better result in the future. Results: to establish the relationship of different weather related variables, humidity, temperature, and rainfall affect the incidence of malaria. Relevant data was analyzed using artificial neural network based multi-layer perceptron and J48 decision tree classifier for both methods. To test options were used like 10-fold cross-validation and percentage split 66%. So 10% class-validation. So we have made divided the complete data into 10 folds, and 1 fold is taken, like say 1 fold will be taken for testing and training on the remaining 9. So it will be trained using the 1 fold and then testing on the 9-fold data which is remaining. This gives 10 evaluation results which are averaged, having done 10-fold cross-validation and computed the evaluation result. The learning algorithm and work to final 11th hour on the entire data set to establish the model prediction with the accuracy and percentage split 66% when we are using. Percentage split only divides 66% of the total data. Samples as training data set and rest 23 percentage on the testing. So in 66 percentile, we take 66% data for testing, and then for training, and then 33% for testing. So this is the two method that we are using. 10-fold, we divide the whole data into 10 items, and then 10 folds or like say groups, and then using the first one we train, and remaining we use it for testing. The comparison between the two classifier methods were done for each of the blocks in the district, and performance accuracy were evaluated month-wise. So because we had the monthly data, but it would have been more stronger if we have the daily data, which is very difficult to get, which is climate data you can get easily, but getting the disease data is very difficult. They just give it like a month-wise only. I think that may not be very good, but whatever we had, we have used it. So January, February up to December, when we evaluated the result for say J48 technique and MLP. So MLP is cross validation tenfold. That is one thing. MLP 66% is split. So let us see in these two colors like blue. So MLP cross validation tenfold is giving better result compared to MLP split, which is square and sea green color. Similarly, this J48 split 66%. In this time, results are not very good. So the best results are in terms of J48 cross validation tenfold. You can see here this green color. Another thing we notice, when the rainfall is rising, it is giving better correlation. And so September, October, we get a peak for J48 tenfold. They are giving the best result, and just followed by MLP cross validation. So cross validation in both the cases are giving better result. Now this is the root mean square error, and we see here the minimum error is received by J48 cross validation, tenfold cross validation, and so root mean square error is very less for the J48 cross validation, and after that MLP cross validation 12-fold. So you can see here the RMSE should be the least. After this, we are doing a kappa. So kappa, if it is more, it is positive, it is not negative, then it is considered that it is doing the classification accurately. So here also we see that J48 cross validation is way ahead in giving the highest accuracy for this crowd thing. And here we can see this one, MLP J48 kappa is very good. Others are there, but here somehow MLP split 66% is also giving little bit better result, but J48 cross validation tenfold is given best kappa. Another parameter which was analyzed is ROC, relative operating characteristics. And so three things like low ROC, medium ROC, and high ROC. So we have divided it into three groups, and it is how well the three different categories of events can be predicted, like high, medium, and low. So how the low incidences can be predicted by our independent variables. Medium incidence can be predicted by our data. And now we can see here for low, high, or even low, medium, or high, J48 cross validation is giving consistently good result. So I think J48 cross validation is going to be one of the best, because it is offering the best efficient classifier based on the J48 algorithm, tenfolds. Now comes early warning system. I think most of you have done it earlier. So it is a web-based malaria early warning system. I will directly show it. It is developed by Pallavi. It's working. Now you can see here in this thing, in this portal, malaria weather forecast analysis, some analysis you can do, malaria risk mapping, population at risk, population density, bulletin, all these things are there. So we can select all, or we can select only few, like ambulance, 102, 108, government public institutions, something. So we can show, suppose I remove this 108. And I leave everything else. If I remove this, then only blue color and red. Red color is the ambulance, and blue color is the health institution, government health institution map for this Sundargarh district. Now, if we want, say, malaria risk, so you can see here one sub-district, there is a risk zone of malaria. So it will keep on changing as the data is changing, population density.
Professor, your screen is not shared.
Really?
The browser is not being shared, sir.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I think because I went into another website. Okay.
Yes.
I will just, I will share that one here. 1 second. Early warning system, it went into another. Thank you for informing. So I will start over again. So this is the portal developed by Ms. Pallavi. It is about, so it tells about malaria, what is malaria and all the key factors, symptoms and other things. Then say malaria risk. Then it will show the malaria risk map. Can you see the portal now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, yes, Professor.
Okay. Now you can see here in this district, one block is showing the risk zone. Blue color is like public health, government institutions. Now I will just show only the red ambulance. 102 and 108. So these are the ambulance location. So you can see here such a detailed data you can provide to the people. In case of say malaria, they can call these ambulance and then they can go to the nearest government health institution, or they can choose to go to the government health institution. Very nicely it is there. Then population density. If we want to see the population density, we know that we also have the data and this is plotted. So this is just a district data. Now you can imagine there is huge scope to go for whole Orissa and for whole province, number of district, number of blocks. You can input the data and this system can be very useful for malaria early warning. So malaria risk map, it is here. So this is the based on the temperature and all these parameters, and it will come. So with this, I will stop this one. Then what is advisory? They send advisory by email and SMS. So she has gone up to the email. So anybody means people, if they are registered in this system, so they will get advisory by email and information can be sent to them. Bulletins. So some bulletin will be there, and what are the risk levels, it will come. So simple portal is there and it is very good. So I will go back to my previous presentation. So I was showing you this portal. So she has used all the thing like rainfall, maximum temperature, etc. in her system and relative humidity. Then risk matrix was developed, and for developing the portal, she has used PHP. Database was in MySQL. You can interact more with her, and this is the complete flow chart of the system that we have discussed. So database was developed, convert historical data to nominal data, put in the MySQL, output from Weka for training data to guide the early warning, malaria early warning system, geospatial data layers, land use, land cover, population, public health department data, hazard threshold was defined to tell what is the risk level, and then it can go to the map. Then we have process weather data, 10 days average, and then rainfall, temperature, maximum temperature, and then humidity. All 10 days data was recorded. Convert weather data to nominal data, evaluation of malaria risk, and then from the MySQL data it comes, and then malaria risk was mapped. Then it goes to the web map service. Evaluation of malaria risk, evaluation of population at risk can be done using this system. Some analysis can be done, and then disseminate information through email or SMS. So this is the overall framework of the thesis. So all this data about weather also can come into that portal. All that data you can show together for different years. And this kind of risk map you can see about malaria. So this is the last slide. So we can say that doctors may save few lives. Doctors are very important for all of us, for our health, but they can see how many patients, 300, 400 in a day, but normally they see not more than 50 patients. So, but population is very large. But our technology, it can give hope to the people to prevent themselves from the disease. It can give the risk maps and say that, okay, these areas are having risk, or these climatic situation may cause this kind of disease. And then we can be much more prepared. And then many people will not fall sick. Like you can imagine, when outbreak is there in COVID in USA, like more than 100,000 people are falling sick every day. Even in India, it went up to 100,000. Now today it is around 15,000 cases per day in India. In Thailand, it is running somewhere, it is like 150 to 900 cases. It is fluctuating nowadays. Earlier it became 0 and 1. So 900 cases is not much, but when 100,000 cases are coming, like say in a city like Delhi, if there are say 30,000 cases, how they can handle? They are not having enough beds, enough doctors to take care of so many patients, which they need ICU sometimes. So I think doctors can save only few lives, but our information technology, GIS, can prevent many diseases to happen. So with this, I will stop here, and we will go. One second. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for joining us. Like we had number of viewers in our Facebook Live as well. I see that they have introduced themselves, but if you have some questions, please post ahead. We will be taking some questions now. And I must say that was a very comprehensive talk, like a lot of information, and the work was also quite interesting and commendable by Ms. Pallavi, who is going to be soon doctor. So thank you. So now maybe I invite the one who has done the work, as Professor Nitin already mentioned, to share your views and like experience with this work. Like the rationale of the work, and like how did you come up with this work, and what is the expected outcome in a larger way?
First of all, I would like to say, like, when I wanted to start my research with, so my focus was more on the health.
Mm-hmm.
And then by slowly going into the literature and studying about different diseases, so I found out like malaria is one of the major disease that is there in Odisha. And I was trying, because I want to utilize my knowledge for doing something for my state, my place. So and this was one of the disease that is the highest number of these incidences for malaria in Odisha specifically. And then it is a vast vast area. So you in India we have in a districts within a state. So in that also I tried to find out which is the most affected one. So Sundargarh district was most affected one. And then I try to see, like, even if I try to find a correlation between this climatic factors with malaria incidences, then what would be the ultimate aim? What I would be trying to tell the people around, like what is the benefit they will get out of it. So then I had a discussion with the public health department. Then I proposed, like, if I can develop a correlation between the climatic factors and the malaria incidences, then I can probably develop on how we can predict malaria, and we can go for to reduce the number of cases. And then we can because we are predicting the climate, so on that basis we can also try to predict the malaria. So again, on the basis of predicting the malaria, how do we go forward? What kind of tools and what kind of and different scenarios that are happening, and what to use and how to do. So nowadays, artificial intelligence and machine learning is really helping a lot of lot of things in kinds of predictions. For example, you are watching Netflix, you are watching in your Facebook, you see the ads coming up and the emails, the spams. So everything is all a machine learning. And then it was more interesting, like, if I can use machine learning to predict and find a correlation first, and which can then help us to predict the malaria. So in that literature, studying many papers and all, then I found this machine learning, the tool Veka. This has been used, and the classifiers like J48 and MLP has been used extensively in different diseases, not only in malaria, dengue. I would say it is mostly used in dengue and malaria. We have very few cases, but mostly it's in dengue and heart disease, lungs disease, diabetes. So many diseases we can predict with this kind of classifiers using machine learning. So then I tried to study more, and then I could find out, like, okay, this we can at least use for uh, the malaria prediction. So we tried to find out a correlation between the climatic factors and the malaria incidences. Then I went more into depth of what are the classifiers that we can be used. So, and then we choose these two classifiers, J48 and MLP, based on our literatures, in which they have been extensively used to predict. And then more depth into the J48 and MLP. I went more depth into it by giving the cases, the test cases, like sir mentioned, that we have used cross validation, percentage split, and even we segregated the data of, like, the supply test cases. For example, we gave the supply test case from the 15 years, we took 13 years as the supply training model, and we predicted for 17 and 18, the last 2 years. So in that case also, we found out that J48 was the major factor in which we could predict uh, the correlation and the prediction of malaria. So now comes, okay, we could find out the prediction and there's a correlation and we can predict. So how then that can be useful, the outcome of this, how it can be used to the general public or to the community. So for this, we tried to develop the system in which we will get the input of the, because we are getting the real-time data from IMD forecast, the 10 days forecast of rainfall, temperature and humidity. So with that forecast data, how we can predict the malaria. So we are also giving a malaria prediction for the 10 days with respect to the 10 days forecast of IMD, the weather forecast data. So in this scenario, then we try to find out if this we can disseminate, this should be good. For that, also we went ahead one step, in which we went to do a survey among the people, whether they are aware of this or not. The initial survey of whether they are aware of malaria, what would be what are the needs to get to know. So many people were like, they are aware, but if they get an information beforehand, they can also prepare accordingly. So that also motivated us, okay, let's do this system. So once we developed the system, again we went for an evaluation of the system with the users, like whether this system is useful or not. So finally that evaluation was done, and most people appreciated, like, okay, this system is really useful because it's the real time. Now also you can see, like in 10 days, if there is a malaria in Odisha, though it is not operational, but there is a chances like this can help a community a lot. So my whole research is, the outcome of the research has to, how we go to the community level. Otherwise the research stays in the research area, it's not going to the community. So that's how this has been developed.
Yeah, really appreciate that. But this portal is available for everyone to use. Can we share the link of the portal for everyone to use?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, yes. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. So that like people have a sense of going through this portal, what you have developed. My next question is for Professor Nitin. So this study was for malaria, and we know at AIT at least, like you are the pioneer of LGIS in this region. So what other diseases you are, you expect to do LGIS in, like other than malaria? Can we use LGIS for any kind of diseases, or there are particular diseases that it's more useful for? Sir, you're muted, sir.
Thank you, Chitrini. Thank you, Pallavi, for giving a whole background. How did you choose your research and how you went about it? This is the right way for doing the thesis. And also, you have been taken the feedback from the communities, how to make the system more useful for them. And your system is not complicated. That is another strong point.
Mm-hmm.
A system should be easily, like people can maneuver the information what they want, and it is very good. So one thing is what Chitrini is asking, what other diseases I have used. I have worked on dengue fever, and this is kind of a regular disease now in every country, and it is also related to somewhat seasons, but it's still not very clear. And we have been using some techniques like information value. We got the information that urban areas near to the water bodies, uh, not really near to the water bodies, but some vegetation and water bodies, they are very much important for that. And then bird flu, where it occurs. So we have some knowledge base. So not only climatic factor, but some other kind of knowledge, pollution like Hauran Jhang has used, air pollution. So how it affects human health. So I want to work more and more using machine learning, AI, to use climatic data, environmental data, and even some kind of, say, socioeconomic parameters, all complicated parameters we can use, and then we try to go for deep learning first, then go for machine learning and AI. So long way to go. I think I don't see in near future that we can come out with a robust technique to 100% tell. If you see the machine learning is still way, we have to work a lot to achieve the 99% result. So I think uh, some parameters cannot tell. So we have to take a complete uh, set of parameters coming from environmental, climatic, and socioeconomic. Then we can identify the disease. And not only that, uh, people should be knowing about their capacity, because risk is capacity to get uh, get over the disease. Like if we are rich, we can go for vaccine and we are safe. So though we are in the risk area, we are safe. So which population is safe, which is having some kind of immunity, all these things. So I think to make a very good system, lot of research is needed. In AIT, we should have a center for health and well-being, and I think our dean is going to make it. I'm going to be part of it, and people from all parts like ICT, nanotechnology, and ISC, everybody is joining hands together, and environmental. So they will be working together for human health and well-being in this center. So I think a lot of research will be going on in future in this area, Chitrini.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a lot of information about like what is going to be in the near future as well. May I ask Ms. Pallavi now, like, because you have used, I mean, machine learning and then two different techniques, what software did you use and like what other softwares available? And for the newbies who want to do research in this field, which languages do you recommend them to use? I mean, learn first.
I have used here Weka. It's a machine learning tool. It's not very complicated, easy to understand and easy to operate tool. So I have gone ahead with this. There are many tools available, like the TensorFlow is one of them. Even in R and in MATLAB also, you can write your own programs. And like if you have a good, basically depending on your requirement and expertise, like if you're coming from a good programming background, then you can write your own algorithms for this, because in Weka and other softwares there might have, you don't have a scope sometimes of uh, writing the code, because it is already written, the algorithms are already written. For example, in Java, it's written in Java in Weka. So it depends like what is your requirement, what you are going to do. So on that basis you can browse through and get, and there are a wide variety. Even in the cloud, the Google Cloud ML is also being now used. TensorFlow is one of them. So depending on actually the requirement and the your background and expertise in which you want to go forward, you can choose tools. And regarding the languages, I would say like R, and in Java, Python. So these are like the things that is currently most popular, and people need to have a background in this. Not exactly full background, but at least have a knowledge of these tools, I would suggest.
Yeah, thank you, because this is useful for the ones who are willing to maybe work in this field in near future. Then we have one question in the Zoom. I'll take that first. Thank you so much, Professor Nitin, for sharing useful information. Now malaria cases are decreasing. Young people may not know about malaria. So how to use geoinformatic techniques to help Thai government to eliminate malaria? So how to use geoinformatics to help Thai government to eliminate malaria?
Yeah, we have to find out what are the like zones in which malaria is still there. So it is normally in the western part, like say near Myanmar border, and some border near to Laos and Cambodia, some district and some provinces. So we have to find out these risk areas, and then we have to, using GIS, we have to map like what are the forest areas, what are the villages, all these are into that area. And then we have to go for with public health department to spray, so that during the, like say around May season, when the larva is there, that time itself we can spray, and then malaria mosquito will not be able to breed in a big number. So population of malaria mosquito we have to control in those areas. So we don't have to go all around Miss Thailand, only to the chronic areas first. And then you will see that thousands and thousands of people will not be sick. Only few people will be sick. And like in cities, we have to make awareness that spray during this time so that malaria is not there around your house. So I think we have to come out with awareness program that this is the time frame of the year when the rainfall starts, larva is there, and then you have to kill the mosquitoes. Otherwise, it will be biting you. Second is, what are the region which are risk zones, hazard zones? We have to tell them, and GIS plays a very vital role. And I think portal that Pallavi has done, that's ultimate. The information can be shared to everybody on their mobile, and they can be saving their life.
Yeah. Thank you. I hope that answers the question for our attendee. So next few questions are regarding the presentation. So any of you can answer probably. So you have demonstrated the relationship between climatic factors and malaria. So what are the operational challenges you could face, you think? Pallavi, maybe, yeah. Maybe.
She was doing the
Yeah.
facing the challenges.
It's the challenges could be like to the real-time surveillance data that we need to get from the public health department. So, and also to access to the quality, even though we are getting the forecast data, but getting the quality seasonal to monthly forecast data that we get, because that is the base on which we are predicting malaria. So that has to be a good quality data, and also the real-time surveillance data from the public health department. So that would be the major challenge if when we are making it an operational when we are making it operational.
Okay. So what is the limitation of this approach, and how can this be addressed?
Limitation, I got it. Limitation is like we have the prediction is based on a 15 years data. So if I can get a data of a larger data set of because for climatic data the previous climatic data it's easy to get, but for the disease data, if we can get a larger data set and also in a finer data time scale, like this we have got a monthly. Okay. If we can get it weekly or even a daily, because the climate data we can get even for daily. So if we can get these data to a minute level of daily data, then it will be really a very good prediction. The skill will be like very high. The prediction skill will be definitely very high. But we are now, the limitation is the data set is only for 15 years, the disease data. And also it's monthly data. So if it could have been a weekly or a daily data, then definitely it would have been, the skill would have been, the prediction would have been much better. So I feel these are the two limitations that currently we have.
Yeah, so probably from your research, you can recommend the governments to probably take a note of the diseases.
Sometimes data are very confidential, even though they might not, like it's like how do we convince them? So maybe this portal that has been developed, or this it can if you show them, and if they think of making it operational, then they would think, okay, then we can share this kind of data, or we can start even collecting. In some places these data are not being even collected. So if you start collecting the data, then it's for a better future that we are trying to do what the work. So we have to think, how do we do it, how do we collect it? So that's
So you mentioned climatic factors. So why only climatic factor, and then what about other factors that can be used, that should be used actually for this kind of studies?
We can use the other social economic factors, and even the displacement of the people. So but we first of all, we didn't had those data, and those data also are not predictable. The predictable data are the climatic data. So we can predict something on the predicted data, but we don't know that how the people are living. It's all dependent on the nature of the people living there, the demography, how they're there, the facilities over there. So that can change too. So but here the prediction is more on the predicted value of the climatic factors. So for the consideration here in the research, we have used these climatic factors, and even we didn't had any other non-climatic factors data with us. And based on the research that the studies that I have done, it was more interesting to first go with the climatic factors first, and then slowly if we try to get the non-climatic factors include in the near future, then we can also include and find the prediction more better. And it's sometimes difficult to model these non-climatic factors, because in these systems, these machine learning tools, we are using the modeling with these values and the thing, and it might be difficult. How do we model this non-climatic factors into these tools?
So this in turn also becomes a limitation of probably this kind of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any kind of predictions need some kind of evaluation mechanism. Like how do you know that like this is correct or this is not correct? So what is the evaluation mechanism of your system and in general also probably this kind of systems
The system that we have developed.
that
So
you have developed? Yeah.
yeah, if it is operational and then we go and show it to the public health departments, they would be with the real time data. They can even today tell and see how the malaria is predicted, and with this system they can even predict like for next 10 days in the real time how is it, and they can compare whether it's, that's also one kind of evaluation. And another evaluation was we did the survey with the evaluation of the system. The system was sent across all over, like to everyone to evaluate. So we found out, and the system basically the utility and the functionality of the system evaluation was done, and many people appreciated, and they were keen like, "Oh, this kind of information is if it is available, so it will be really of a great help to them." And also many people after the evaluation they mentioned like, okay, this portal is good, but if we really want to reach to the people, then why don't you develop an app?
Uh-huh.
So it's like we get an immediate warning in our app, okay, because now there's weather prediction apps are there. So if they're saying there is going to rain, okay, if it's going to rain, so will there be malaria? So if they get an alert or in their app in the mobile phone, so that will be great. So the recommendation that I got from the survey of evaluating the system was most of the, and it was coming from more of a young generation, like why don't you develop an app for the system. So that has been taken into consideration. So it's not in this study now. Maybe we can think in the future of developing an app, so it becomes more easier to reach to the community level.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for those answers and for joining us today. I'll be last requesting Professor Nitin to give his last views on this topic. So my last question to you as a question, like you are one of the leaders in the field of HealthJS in this region. So what is the scope of this field in near and far future? Although you have probably touched upon this topic question already, but maybe to wind up this session. So you're muted, sir. So please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Chitrani.
Yeah.
I think this is one of my most favorite topic, like human health and information technology. So, like there are very limited number of doctors, limited number of health facilities, and how this IT can serve the society, how we can help the people to be healthy for all time, for the human sustainability. And I think a GIS database, as Pallavi was telling, it is one of the biggest limitation for disease data. There are issues of like ethical thing. People do not want to share the data. But I think if educational institution work with the hospitals or ministry directly, we can get the data, and then we have to develop the information for the means government itself without taking the name of anybody. And I think then data will not be a problem. Like I filled the form along with Hauran Jang for cancer data, and we could get the cancer data. So I think those limitations we can overcome. But I see I'm not still I will not say that I'm the pioneer or expert in this. Long way to go. I'm still a student, and I'm learning every day, and I'm really excited that now Pallavi has told about this machine learning. I have given this talk at many places, this one, because this is very potential technique, machine learning. So I think this way, huge amount of work is possible. Then one of my student, two of my student, like one was Priyanka Kakaria. We have used for heart care system, and that paper is also getting lot of citations now. Earlier it was little bit less, but now suddenly in the last 1 year citations are zoomed now. And because people are trying to make wearable sensors and they want to take care of their heart situation. So there are ECG sensor also now, not only blood pressure and pulse rate and oximeter, ECG sensors. So I think slowly Corona detection kits will be there, wearable, and we can do, and we can take care about ourselves for Corona. No need to be afraid. So just take the vaccine and keep on monitoring, and then keep on working without affecting the economies. And I think, but I think we have to keep on working. Still, we are at the beginning stage of using ICT for health and information management for health. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Nitin, sir, and Pallaviji, for joining us today, and all our viewers in Facebook and Zoom for joining us. If you still want to know more about it, like, you can still leave your questions and we'll try to answer through our experts. So thank you so much once again. And
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Chitrani, for being the master of the ceremony. Very nicely you have done it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pallavi.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And good luck.
You.
Good luck, Pallavi, for your paper.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I'm waiting for that. Okay. Bye.
All the
Bye,
best.
everybody.
Bye. Bye. Bye.